All right.
Okay. I'm going to get the meeting going. In terms of who we have here for members, so Justin, have you taken your seat as a non-alternate member?
I don't think that occurs till next year.
Okay. And so Larry, you are still a regular member, correct?
Apparently.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's clear. So Rich Napolitano is not here. We'll seat Justin for Rich Napolitano. I'll call the meeting to order. I apologize.
You know, to tell you the truth, I thought that I was not that Justin's term. I thought started this November.
I thought it started November 21st, if I wasn't mistaken.
Yeah, it does.
Justin, were you sworn in by the town clerk?
I was sworn in. They told me I was swearing in early though for the position next year, so it's a little unclear to me. And then on the website, it shows me still as an alternate. So.
Okay, well, let's just say for this evening, you're a seated member, as is Larry.
Okay.
Whether it's one as an alternate being seated to replace another, you're both seated as members this evening, and we'll square this away after, and make sure that there's nothing that we've done that would cause an issue legally from a legal perspective.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's that it's the term is it's something that was inherited many years ago, where somebody was sworn in and left, and they changed the date for them. And it is carried forward on a 4-year cycle, but 1-year lag.
Oh, yeah, we won't. So it could be that Justin is in an off-year cycle, so his term. Well, let's just say that we have all the members of the commission are seated that are present at this meeting, because we did have some vacancies. So let's go forward with it under those conditions. So any changes or additions to the agenda, Paula?
None.
Okay. The minutes of November 8th, 2021, members, any corrections, modifications?
No.
So I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye, or raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay. That's unanimous.
Aye.
And is
that Vera?
It is.
Okay.
I like Barrett.
Okay, that is from another number that Vera has. That's the 860. Is it 774?
Yep, that's me.
Okay. You have that, Paula?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Audience Paula knows my number.
Is there anything anybody would like to bring up to us that isn't already on the agenda for this evening? And I would ask that you be recognized before you speak. So if you want to raise your hand if you're on video, or send a notification to the person running our meeting. And given the number of additional people we have in the meeting, I just want to keep things very orderly.
How do the phone-in people notify you, like me?
I believe that there's
you don't, you just talk.
Yeah, in this case.
I know, but I don't want to cause chaos.
I appreciate
maybe you could
that.
take turns and say, okay, my name is John Duda, 40 Cardsmill Road. Maybe you could say, okay, John, your turn, or my son,
Okay.
John Duda Jr., 17 Cardsmill Road. Hey, John Duda Jr., your turn. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it's going to be hard for me to keep track of names if there's not a name attached to the number. But if if you could speak up and just say my name is, and I appreciate you clarifying that. My name is,
because I don't want it to start and then it's chaos. And
so I
thought I'd ask up front in case you could make some rules.
Okay. So yeah, I just want to make sure this is clear. So I'll ask that if you'd like to speak, just say I'd like to speak and announce your name, and then I'll recognize you. And if we have multiples, that will give each person a chance. So that being said, Under audience of citizens, is there anything that anyone wants to bring up that isn't already on our agenda? Okay, so we're going to go into a public hearing. This is a public hearing for Valley Street Investments, LLC, an application for a wedding event facility at 79 Cards Mill Road, map 20, lot 16, per section 52.7.5 of the zoning regulations. So with that, we're going to open the public hearing. And Mr. Glaude, are you going to make the presentation for the applicant?
Yes, I am.
I'm going to hand this over to you and let you make your presentation. Paula, is there anything you'd like to say before Mr. Glaude makes his presentation?
I just want to point out that the public hearing has been noticed per state statutes in the Chronicle. The sign placed on the property, and the owners of property within 200 feet were also notified both in the town of Lebanon, because this abuts the town line, and in Columbia. We've received 17 letters. 14 of them are on the website under the second listing of an agenda packet, and 3 just came in today that have not been put on the website yet.
Okay, thank you. Give me a moment, I'm just making note of that. Okay, that being said, anything else, Paula?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Glaude, please go ahead.
Hey, thank you. For the record, my name is Greg Glaude. I'm a licensed land surveyor with Killingly Engineering Associates, having a place of business at 114 Westcott Road in Danielson, Connecticut. I will be representing the applicant tonight for this application. As you know, it is a special permit application that we are seeking. Valley Street Investments is seeking for their property located at 79 Cards Mill Road. We are proposing a wedding/event facility. That is per section 52.7.5 of the zoning regulations. And as most of the members of the commission will remember, we worked with the town on adopting those regulations. They were adopted on August of this past year, or this year, and they became effective in September 13th, 2021. I wanted to read a couple of, or just remind a couple of things, because I know there's probably some public here tonight, but those section of the regulations for event facilities, and they're probably not aware of these things, but I kind of wanted to point out what it was that we went through and got adopted. Basically, that section required that wedding event facilities would be required to provide a statement of use to be submitted with their application describing in detail the nature and scope of the event. It was required that the lot size, the minimum lot size, would be 25 acres for an event facility. The maximum number of attendees would be 200, not including event staff. Use separation, we did put into the regulations that a minimum of 50 feet from the property line and a minimum of 300 feet from any residential building on adjacent property lines. That's for the event facility itself. Parking areas would be located a minimum of 100 feet from the street line and a minimum of 175 feet from any residential buildings on adjacent properties. Event hours were set to be between 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. on only Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. There are no events on other days or times. And a maximum number of 15 events is all that is allowed per calendar year. We required in those regulations that the event facility would be approved from the state and or local health department. We had adopted in those regulations that noise, music from any event or reception shall take place indoors. If a temporary tent is used for the indoor space, it shall be classified as a soundproof tent. Only low-level background music may be allowed outdoors during the ceremony, and the music should not be audible beyond the property boundary. We talked about lighting. That's lighting for the event facility. Event facility would be per section 65.6 of the regulations. There was a section for traffic Facility, traffic safety, that all driveway entrances to the site would be designed to ensure safety and ease of access, taking into account grade lines and line of sight for vehicles entering and exiting, and that the applicant, a traffic study would be conducted by a licensed traffic engineer, would also be required on a town road. On-site parking would be provided at 1 space per 3 attendees, plus 1 space per staff member. And then there's also, the last item was to minimize impact on adjacent property owners. The commission may limit the maximum number of attendees, limit the number of events, or limit the hours and limit the number of events per week, and require screening or buffing or increased setbacks. So I wanted to just go over that again, just to remind everybody on the commission what we had gone through and adopted in those previous meetings, and that way we could get the public up to speed onto what was required, what we did. So the proposal that we have is a 41.3 acre parcel. It's located on the east side of Cards Mill Road, and it's basically up against the 10-mile river. The property from the road goes down to the river, drops about 70 feet in elevation. There's a long driveway that comes from the property all the way down to the existing house that's on the property. And I didn't know, Mr. Commissioner, are there ways that we can show the plans as we're doing the public hearing here, or?
Paula, would you like to share the plan to the public, or I could share them if you want me to log in on a separate Zoom link, or you can give Mr. Glaude the right to share.
Mr. Glaude can do it.
Yes, then go ahead and share them if you'd like. It'll
Yep. So does she have to pass it to me or anything through the meeting? I apologize.
I don't think I do. This is
There's
my
a little
first time.
green icon at the bottom of your computer called Screen Share.
Yep, I've got it. Let me move you over for a minute so I can open it up, the PDF of it.
The benefit of having the applicant share a screen is they can use the cursor as a pointer.
Correct.
Which makes it a little bit easier.
Okay.
All right, let me get to the drawings here. All right, so I'm going to hit the share screen right now. And we have it right here. All right. So this is the overall of the site, the 41.3 acres. I will use my cursor to point here, but the main structure is down in the very corner of the property. Basically, we have Cards Mill Road at the bottom of the page. The 10-mile river kind of goes in loops and has a nice bow and goes around the peninsula of where the building is located. The existing driveway to the building that's down there now comes in off of Cards Mill Road and follows a long paved driveway. It's over 900 feet long down to the buildings that are in that area. The building does contain a large 2-story family residence that's in the property. There's also a good-sized garage and carriage shed down here. There's multiple barn buildings. They're smaller of nature, and sheds that are along in the property. There's about 3 more of those. And the grounds in the area, there's many walkways, planting areas, water features, and really kind of give the whole area down here a very park-like setting. Let me see if I can get to the next sheet here. So the owner is Valley View or Valley Street Investments, LLC. That is a holding company for Mr. Craig Gates. He is the applicant behind this. And I did want to make it or point out to the commission that this isn't just really an investment property for him. He really does love the property that he's purchased, and he is in the process of moving in and living in the large home that is here on the site. But he does want to also come forward. As you know, Mr. Gates owns a very similar facility over in Hampton known as Stonehurst. That's probably a larger facility. There's actually 2 facilities there. They are more units, but he's been doing that for 3 years. And this is kind of an expansion on that business where he wants to run the thing. But because he's living here, he does want to limit. And that was the reason why we were only going with the 15 per year, is because that's kind of what he wanted to do. I'm going to take the time to read the statement of use. That way you'll get an idea of what we're proposing. And then I will kind of point things out on the pictures again. Are the photos coming up okay on the screen that you guys can see them?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
It's working well.
So the statement of use, and this is dated November 3rd, 2021, to propose event wedding venue. Valley Street Investments LLC has submitted an application to the Town of Columbia Planning and Zoning Commission to permit a event wedding venue at on the 41.33 acre property at 79 Cards Mill Road. This application is submitted in accordance with section 21.2.3 of the Town of Columbia zoning regulations as a permitted use subject to the special standards applicable to the use outlined in section 52.7.5 of said regulations. So the statement of use is as presented. The proposed event facility is proposed to hold a maximum of 15 events on a yearly basis with a maximum of 200 guests. Events will be held within a hard-sided soundproof tent that may be set up in 2 locations as shown on the permitting plans. Area 1 will be a 60 by 60 concrete pad to be installed on the facility grounds. Adjacent to this pad are the proposed restrooms that will be isolated from guests by vinyl stockade fence. The restrooms would be portable in a sense that there will not be required installation of a licensed septic company. Area 2 may be utilized will be an existing cobblestone driveway in front of the residence. It should be noted that these 2 areas will never be used at the same time. Wedding ceremonies will be held at the on-site gazebo, which is positioned in a heavily landscaped area. I'm going to switch to the next drawing so I can kind of point out some of these areas. This is kind of a close-up of the lower area of the property. So this is wedding venue area number 1, which will be a 60 by 60 concrete pad with the tent on top of it. Wedding venue area number 2, I'm pointing to now, will be on the existing cobblestone driveway that is there now. The reason for this is he's quite unsure which one he really wants to do, but it's most likely going to be area 1. That's what we're leaning towards, because he thinks putting it in area 2 will kind of hide and distract from the beauty and the view of the house that's there now. His intent is to have people walk around, you know, between the wedding ceremony and between the party thereafter that will take place in the tent. So that's why he has 2 areas, but most likely we'll be going with wedding venue area number 1. Wedding ceremonies will be held on the on-site gazebo. That's this area here over by the river. As you can see, there's many walkways and brick pads, brick pavers leading up to this gazebo area, which is heavily landscaped area of the property with views of the 10-mile river. In the statement of use here, we say that it's located 80 feet from the property line. And I did want to point out that is an error. That is not the property line, but the town line. Property line is actually the stone wall in this area. So it's actually 150 feet away from the stone wall. Either way, we're further than the 50 feet that is required by the regulations. And again, this is where the ceremony itself will take place. Before the ceremony, there'll be very light background music playing as people are waiting. But then as the bride and groom come down, obviously that is taken off. And then there's just really some speaking. The guests will be seated over in the lawn area here. We will note that on the plans, but that's where the chairs will be set up, temporary chairs during the event facility. Let's see. All aspects of the event facility will be located greater than 300 feet from any residential building on adjacent properties. I did do some measurements on that. Right now, The closest properties are going to be off to the right of this screen that you're seeing, also the closest buildings. There are two buildings that are one's within 485 feet. The other building is over 500 feet that are over here. They're in the actual town of Franklin, and they're located on the side street that's over here. But every other residence is greater than 900 feet. All the residences along
Did you mean to
Cardinal
say
Road.
it in the town of Lebanon?
I'm sorry, did I say that?
Hey,
They're in the town of Lebanon, yes.
Okay.
Yep, those two are. The rest of the houses that are along Cards Mill Road across the street, those are all greater than 900 feet, and most are greater than 1,000 feet away from where all these activities will be taking place. Just wanted to give that out for everybody to have an idea of where we stand in adjacent property owners and their homes. Let's see, the days will be limited to Thursday through Sunday only, with our hours 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., just as are written in the regulations. All music from the events will be within the soundproof tent, except for the music at the ceremony, which will be limited to low-level background and acoustic music traditionally played for wedding ceremonies. As the nearest property boundary to potential music source is a great distance away, music will not be audible beyond the property lines. And now we get into talking about the driveway. So I'm going to switch back to sheet 2 here. So this is the upper part, Cards Mill. This is the barn in the front of the property, and this is the rental house on the other property that Valley Street Investments owns. And then this is the open field. All this area here is open field. We get back here towards 10 Mile River, where we are wooded. This is the wood line, the tree line as it is out there. So the proposal here is the existing driveway entrance to the property right now travels behind the rental house and goes down towards the property, towards the building. But there is a sightline issue here. If you're looking to, I believe that would be towards the south it drops down quite a bit, and the side slopes, it's very limited sightline here. So in looking at that and in working with our traffic engineer, we have determined the safest site would be further down at the property to the north. So we are proposing a driveway that would be brought in here where there's an existing stone wall. There are presently 2 driveway entrances there. One is a farm entrance that goes into the field, and the other one is another entrance on the other property that he owns. There are multiple properties here in their name, but there's another driveway entrance that goes into that back property on the other side of the stone wall. There's some limitation here because we do have SNET pole 35, and we also have a drainage pipe that was put in for the catch basin probably by the town at some point in the structure. So using either one of those ones would be very restrictive. So we're going to kind of go right in the middle of the 2 of them, take away a little bit of the stone wall here. We're going to have a paved apron, and we're going to provide a 16-foot wide proposed stone dust driveway that will then follow along in the field and go to a grassed parking area here, which is behind the existing shed. Again, most of that will be out of view. That's one of the reasons for choosing some of these locations, is so that vehicles would not be seen from the location here. Sight lines for our driveway, we have designed them. So for the proposed driveway looking to the north, we will be providing 550 feet of sight line, which is more than adequate for a road of this speed and of this size or posted speed. And looking to the south, we will be providing a sight line of 565 feet, which brings us well back beyond the barn. So that's the sight line. Those were in conjunction with the traffic engineer, and we'll get into a little bit more of that in the future here. Parking will be on the existing grassed surface located, and I think I've got to go back one more. On the existing grassed surface, and it'll be greater than 300 feet from the nearest residence. Patrons will be directed where and how to park by staff attendants, and then shuttled to the area event from the parking lot by a golf cart. This method is utilized over at Stonehurst. So basically, people will park here. They actually have golf carts, and they have sometimes Suburbans that they use to drive the guests down as they arrive. They will drive them down this little section and into the driveway, and that will get them down towards the driveway where they'll be brought into the venue area and dropped off as they come in. One of the other things that I would like to add to this is, in speaking with the owner of this facility and the event facility in Stonehurst, they have many, many venues under their belts at this point. This year alone, they've had over 200 events at Stonehurst, mostly due to COVID, because a lot were canceled last year and rescheduled to this year. They've actually gotten to the point where they're not even using attendants anymore. They're mostly shuttling their people in from their parking lot. And many of the guests coming to the events, the weddings, since they are not staying here overnight, many of the people booking these facilities are out of state or from farther away. They're actually staying at hotels. In most areas, it's in the Mansfield area that they're staying. And then they are renting shuttles and buses to bring them into the facilities. And I've had similar experiences with weddings out of state that I've gone to, but that's what he says the bulk of the parties are doing now, but we can't anticipate that they'll all be doing that. But I did want to point that out because sometimes, and as the client is saying, most times they are coming in groups and not in individual cars. Up to 65 cars may enter the facility at the start of the event. Over the course of the first half hour, if there is a maximum attendance of 200 patrons. This is seldom the case. Not every facility or not every wedding has 200. So a lot of them are smaller. They could be half the size. They could be 80. They could be 150. There's a lot of differences that will come here. Traffic leaving the event typically is spaced out over a couple of hours as guests leave at different times. And that's, as many of you have been to weddings, you would know, sometimes certain people, older people, may leave earlier from the event. Other people may leave in the midway, and then usually the wedding party and some of the other guests will leave at the end. So it is a staggered release of people, and the traffic engineer will actually go into a little bit more of that as we get into it. But that is our statement of use. I've described the sight lines to you. I've described the parking surface, the venue areas 1 and venue 2. I'm going to go down back here to you because the other thing that we have is in this carriage shed / garage. It's basically a 2-car garage below with an open parking area on the right side that has 3 spaces. But the upstairs of this is a finished living area with an existing septic area. We do propose a bridal suite that will be up there. A lot of the times the brides like to come before the wedding, many hours before. They like to get their makeup on. They like to be with their girls before the meeting or before the wedding. So that is intended to be upstairs in that area, and that is pointed out on our plan here. Again, there's no interior modifications needed. There's already bathrooms in there, and there is already several rooms in there. Probably will also be the separate room will be for the groom. The groom will probably be allowed to be in the other room that's there to have a groomed area. I did go over the separating distances for the event facility. We will be catered. We're not proposing any cooking of facility on site. Mr. Gates also owns a catering company that runs out of his restaurant, which is the Black Dog in Putnam, Connecticut. They have a trailer that they bring to many events, and that's what they will be doing, parking their trailer down on the side here. Between here and here is where they propose to park that during the event. All the dishes and everything are not washed on site. They're taken off of site afterwards. They're basically just brought in. Everything's cooked off site and then served right here as it's time when it's time for the meal. The soundproof tent will be a fully enclosed tent. It'll be with acoustical side panels that are hard panels with, there's a certain thickness to them. There are quite a few companies out there creating these. I'm going to try to get some literature for you on those, that they're of one that they're close to, you know, looking at purchasing for here, but I do want to show you some details of that. But there'll be no open sides to the tent. So all the music's going to be contained inside during the celebration after the wedding. So that is in the intent. I did also want to note, and Paula, I don't know if you had gotten copies of it, but we did run this by the Wetlands Commission, and we were granted an agent approval earlier this month. We didn't publish that yet. We just got the notice from the Wetlands agent today. If you don't have that, I will make sure I scan that and get that over to you. I do anticipate that this meeting will go on to January tonight. And then the only other two items that I wanted to note to the commission members tonight is two things have changed in relationship to our traffic study. We do have a delay on that. We're working with F.A. Hesketh and Associates. They are out of East Granby, Connecticut. They're a very good traffic engineer. They were anticipating that there were traffic counts in this area that they would be able to use, but there were none. So based on that, they have to do their own traffic counts, and their workload, they were not able to be prepared for tonight, but they will be prepared for the February, the January 10th meeting. So I apologize for that delay. That kind of didn't come into play until last week, that was going to be where we were leading on this. So I will have more traffic information coming up. I do, like I said, anticipate that this would go on to next month and that we would have that information. The other item that we have is with the health department. So originally, and as my statement of use just read, we were going to be proposing a 16 by 20 restroom area here that would have what is called a holding tank. And we were led to believe by Eastern Highlands that this would be okay. But when we submitted the application to them for final review, along with this application to the Planning and Zoning Commission, it was sent out to the state health department. And the state health department has some policies that they don't like to see facilities like this or wine tasting or any kind of events to have holding tanks or porta potties. So they're against it. So we have to do what's called an on-site septic system for this. So we have the testing set up. Again, this only came to light on Thursday of last week. So my apologies. Again, we had done all our due diligence with the local health department, but the state health department has separate things that they were not aware of. And so we're working with the health department, the local health department. We have testing scheduled for Monday, and we will get a design next week ready for this and into them. And we're anticipating having approval. We're probably going to be putting a septic system in this area here. If that doesn't test so good, we may be moving up here. It shouldn't be a very large system, probably something similar to that. It is a little uphill, so we will be pumping to it. So we will have a septic tank and a pump chamber that pumps over to these areas. Again, but those things just came to light on Thursday and Friday, and I only spoke with Glenn Bagdolian from the health department today in regards to setting up additional testing for this. And with that, I think that is all I have. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman. And what I like to do, I'm sure the public will have questions when you open it up to them. I will take notes while they're doing their questions, and I will gladly address any of them that I can after their public session. I don't want to have a lot of going back and forth to kind of keep it a little less cluttered, if that's okay with you.
That's just fine. I think that's a good strategy. Okay. With that said, Mr. Glaude, I might ask you to put the map back up if we need it, if there are questions centered around something in location. But keep that as an option open, and I appreciate your help. So I'm going to open this up to commission members for any questions that they have or comments. And then after the commission members have a chance to speak, I'll open it up to public comment or questions. Anything from commission members on this?
I thought it was well thought out. My only question would be, as far as the grassy field area, if that could be a problem if you're have an event during a rainy season and if it gets all muddy and whatnot. How they thought about that?
Yes, again, Greg Glaude for the record. We have, and actually Paula pointed out, that was an excellent point. I was supposed to address that during my meeting here, but so we have thought of that. It is a very hard surface area where they're proposing it, according to the farmers who have worked it. I've had the same comments. And since Paula brought it up, the engineer and I and the applicant have all agreed that we're going to show a secondary stone dust area, second option, if you will. If he finds that it's getting too muddy for him, we are going to show the details of what we would put in there instead. And he did this out at Stonehurst because we did have that problem in one area. And we did convert the field to a stone dust surface, if you will. So that's going to be our option. We will detail that on the plans. I don't have that on the plans now, but it is something that will be on the plans next month.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from commission members, comments, questions?
I think it was well. I think it was well presented. I'm pleased with everything he's done. I think they got it covered.
Okay. Alex, go ahead.
I have a comment. If you do have an event where you have 200 people, I know it's very early in the stage, but your bathroom size means that you only have about five stalls available for women. I don't think that's enough if you have a large event. I just can't see 100 women dealing with 5 stalls.
Okay. Mr. Glaude, is there a health department regulation for events like this, the number of bathroom stalls? Mr. Glaude?
Did we lose him?
Oh. I think he's frozen.
He may be muted.
He's frozen.
Either frozen or muted.
Yeah,
Rick, I know the building code has numbers of toilet fixtures that are required per square foot of use. And when they get a building permit for this, they may review that. The building department in town would review that. It's really not our purview.
Okay, I think we need Mr. Glaude back here if we're going to have comments and questions. I'm seeing his image blacked out. Is this our first technical glitch on Zoom?
Yeah, it is. It isn't anything I can control. It's something on his end.
Oh, we've lost him altogether.
Which may mean he's coming back on. He's in the waiting room. We'll let him in.
You kicked him out.
I think I am back.
You're back.
Can you guys hear me? I got frozen out. I don't know what happened.
Mr. Glaude, so the comment came from one of our commission members questioning whether 5 bathroom stalls was sufficient, assuming maximum 200 attendees, and if half were female, is 5 bathroom stalls enough? Is there a state health code regulation about the number of bathroom facilities for a certain size event?
I don't know that there is, but I will certainly look into what's convenient, what's happening. It's probably more of an architectural building code type thing. I will check into that and find out. So okay, I will get some input on that.
Thank you, Alex, for that question. Anything else from commission members at this point? I'll open it up to the public, and I'll ask the public. And because of the number of people that are obviously interested, I believe that you're here for this application. I'd ask you to only speak one at a time after I've recognized you. When you go to speak, please state your first name and your last name and your address so that it's apparent who you are to all the other people that are involved with the meeting. And I would ask that you keep your comments to this application and it's how it conforms. Well, whatever questions you need to ask, we want to get them answered. So that being said, oh, okay.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead. That would be
I know the
Vera Engler
proposed
asking.
Yes, I know the proposed attendance is 200. Do we have an approximation as far as the number of staff that'll be attending, working each event?
That hasn't been brought up. Mr. Glad, I'm going to have you answer the commission members' questions as they come up, but when we get into the public questions, we will accumulate them.
Yeah, there will be a maximum of 10. That's something that we also have to add that was discussed today with the applicant that we have to add to our statement of use. Did that come through?
Yes.
Yeah.
You got that? Okay. Any other questions or comments from commission members?
10 members for staff?
Correct.
That includes the caterers?
Correct.
Okay.
Those people going to park? Where will those employees park?
Hold on, Bob, you had a question?
Yeah, where will those employees park?
That is another thing that we have to address. They will be up top with that area. I think those were not put on the plans, but have to be put on the plans. That was another one of Paula's comments. And those are some of the things that we just got those questions. So those were left out, but they will be parking up there.
Okay. Anything else from commission members? Questions, comments? With that, I'm going to open it up to the public. So I saw one hand raised. Holly Wells was the first one. Carol, we'll get to you second.
I'm Holly Wells. I live at 100 Johnson Road in Columbia, so I am directly across the street from this property. The plans as I see them right now look fine. I mean, I would be okay with this. My question, and I don't even know if it's an appropriate one, or my comment maybe, is about potential future variances. I happen to own property with abutting Mr. Gates on Columbia Lake, along with my cousins. And we have come to this board at least 3 times in the 25 years with Mr. Gates requesting variances. So while I don't have a problem with what is being presented today, I am wondering if there are going to be requests for variances almost immediately, which is what happened with the property in Columbia Lake.
Was that your only question that you had?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to address that.
Sure.
The Planning and Zoning Commission doesn't address variances.
Okay.
We are addressing a special permit application this evening. Variances are addressed by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Okay. And in terms of the application, whatever has been done on another property elsewhere in town has really no bearing on this application this evening. Right. So that's the best answer I can give you, and that's the most information I can give you.
Okay, I understand. It's my only concern about this is the potential future variances. So I guess I'm talking to the wrong crowd here then.
Well, yeah, you know, and stepping a little outside of our normal area of involvement with a property, variances are granted or granted when they are granted based on a legal determination that there was a hardship on the land, and it can't be a self-imposed hardship. And they're not granted all that often anymore compared to many years ago. Okay. And so as far as that goes, variances are a variance from having to conform with zoning regulations. We have a special permit process in place for this that gives us some subjective discretion. And I'm kind of saying this to all the members of the public who are attending, just so you understand the process. So a special permit application, it's a permitted use under our regulations, under our laws, so to speak, but subject to a level of review because we realize that it needs extra attention and extra review. and we take that very seriously, which is why we have a public hearing. It's not just approved by a vote during a commission meeting. And it's the public hearing, the public gets to weigh in on it and make their comments and ask questions and so forth. So as far as any concerns you have about future unforeseen events at this property, I can only speak to what would be the involvement of the Planning and Zoning Commission under the special permit process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. No, it's a good question. The next person was Carol Williamson.
Carol Williamson, 12 Garland Road, Columbia. If indeed the people will be staying at hotels, motels, and stores, Route 6 and then Cherry Valley Road and then Garland Road is the shortest, most uncomplicated route to get to the venue. My concern is that Garland Road is a very, very steep hill. In fact, I have asked the state troopers, 3 of them, to come over and patrol or sit here and try and slow down the traffic, because it's not unusual for people to come down this over a half a mile, very steep hill at 70 miles an hour. We did have one accident that ended up with a guy upside down in our pasture. I just think there's more to traffic than just how the line of sight for the driveway. And I was wondering if the applicant has reviewed the most reasonable, shortest distance to get to the venue from a housing area.
Okay, we're going to accumulate questions like that. I'm going to ask Mr. Glaude to address the traffic pattern flow through the area when we get, if we get into about a half a dozen questions, Mr. Glaude, maybe then we can go and answer them, because there's a lot of interested people. I'm anticipating a lot of questions, and I'd like to get through this efficiently. Carol, we'll revisit this, and it could be that needs to be revisited in our certainly we're going to have to extend the public hearing because we don't have enough information to make a determination this evening. There'll be some modification and additions to the application as it sits. Anything else you wanted to bring up?
Well, I just think that this is an RA zone, which is residential agricultural, not commercial. And I'm wondering why you're putting a commercial facility in a residential zone.
Okay. We'll let the applicant address that when we get to answering some of the questions that are posted. Can I have any other members of the public want to ask a question or make a comment?
Yeah, I would like to make a comment.
Sorry,
okay.
A lot of us.
Could you identify yourself, first name, last name, your property address?
My name is Greg. Oops, sorry.
Okay.
I just go ahead, Greg. I yield.
Thank you. I'm kind of following Carol because I'm on Garland as well, so it would be a nice little segue.
Could you hold on a second, please? So what phone number are you calling from? This is the 455 number?
Yes, I previously was online. I just want to make a note of that. And my Spectrum just booted.
So your first name and your last name and your address?
Greg Mooney, 39 Garland.
Okay. Okay, Greg, please go ahead.
Carol kind of sent home what I was thinking, that, the traffic here is kind of our main concern. I previously lived on a busy road, purposely moved to be more in the country. We walk, we run. I got the kids, and it's going to be a big, huge traffic burden. And these are really tiny, tight roads, and it just, it concerns me a little. I know it's going to be a great facility. Gates does a great job. It just is really, this is a residential area, and it's really hard to bring something commercial in. I don't quite know, where does it stop? Is somebody next door going to do something? And, where are we going to stop this? So it just is concerning to me. And I do have young kids, and we like the quiet area. that road that they put it on is such a tight road. You can barely have 2 trucks go by. So you bring in hundreds of vehicles. It's just, it's a concern to me.
Okay, we'll let Mr. Glaude get to that. The next question, next comment from the public. There was somebody else who yielded.
My name is John Dude. I was the yieldor.
Okay, thank you, John.
If there's even such a word as that.
Okay, what? And your
So my name is
John
Duda. I live at 40 Cards Mill Road. I also have my son here who lives at 17 Cards Mill Road. I have lived here for 36 years, paid taxes as a residential person living in a residential area. I have a big problem with the whole concept of the town giving special permits to put a commercial venue in a residential area. I can't help but be negative and look towards something like AquaTurf, which is a 22-acre parcel, you know, holds 1,600 people located right there off an exit of I-84, perfectly suited in a commercial area to do commercial venues. I've raised 10 children here. I have 17 grandkids that, you know, are here constantly. I bought in this area 36 years ago. I've enjoyed paying my taxes here for 36 years. And I've raised a family here, as my son is now, bought the house down the hill, 17 Cards Mill Road. It's a little bit of a slap in the face that, although I do like Craig Gates and I do know him personally, and he does do a great job, like the other speaker said, Craig is a businessman and he's one of the finest ones out there. Everything he touches grows. So I view this as a camel in the tent. It's very nicely brought forward by that gentleman who explained where the leach field would be, and they'd put some powder. Eventually that would be a paved parking lot, a helicopter landing pad. I just believe it's a camel in the tent. It's not an innocent thing that's just going to be a little venue for a little fun. I believe it'll mushroom up into an AquaTurf. There's a beautiful river down there. Like I say, I've been here for 36 years. I don't see a residential neighborhood as a venue for a major wedding thing. There's nothing Craig does that's small. And that being said, this isn't going to be small 5 years from now. It's going to grow. And it's going to be planted right in our nice little town. And it's not why people buy in the residential areas. You know, let's help him find a commercial area to put it. Or just rezone the whole street commercial and we'll all sell our property. I don't really think it's a small, innocent little permit. It is going to grow. He is going to do a good job because he is a good businessman. And when it grows to the right size, he'll sell and build one somewhere else. He's always already on number 2. And we'll be left in the wake of it. Widened streets getting closer to our house, buses, loud noise at night, people DWI down the street running our kids over. This is my concern, why the town would allow something like this in the middle of our residential neighborhood. It is a camel in the tent. And you know, I happen to like Craig.
If you could just cover points one time. We have a lot of people that want to comment on
sure,
this.
Sure, I'm done.
We do want to hear.
And I'm speaking for 17 Cards Mill Road as well.
Give me a second, please. Give me a second.
Sure.
I appreciate all your comments, but if you could make your points one time so that everybody has a chance to make their point.
All done.
I'd appreciate that.
All right, I'm done.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to comment on this?
Mr. Chairman, a question.
And from who?
Harold Nelson, 140 Kingsley Road.
Mr. Nelson, please go ahead.
I was wondering, it appears as though a lot of the traffic study and the septic has not been fully realized for this meeting. Will the January meeting be warned similarly, or will members of the public have to keep an eye out on the town website to know when that meeting is?
Well, that meeting is for 7 p.m. on January. I'm checking this upcoming schedule that we haven't formally approved for 2022. So it's January 10th is the very likely date. So you can make note of that now. So 7 p.m. on January 20th is where we will likely be. And you'll know that during this meeting if we extend the public hearing to that time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nelson. Any questions or other comments for this evening? Apparently not.
Nikki Helson has her hand up.
Yep.
We're going to go through and give everyone a chance to.
I have a question.
Who is that from, please?
This Nikki Keltson, 5 Baker Hill Road.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So I agree with what everybody's saying about the roads. I mean, I have a new driver about to be hopefully a new driver. I've been run off the road on Cards Mill Road by other drivers, and you add in the drinking like Mr. Duda was saying. And I agree with all of that, but also, and forgive my ignorance, because actually this is my first planning and zoning meeting, but if there was something added for this wedding venue to the planning and zoning regulations that would affect this area and all of the residents in it, wouldn't that have been something that we maybe could have been notified about?
Well, the process for changing regulations involves a public hearing and it involves public notice, but because the regulation was changed and it covered the entire town, there's certain notification processes that are in place, but it doesn't go out to each and every homeowner in the entire town every time we contemplate a regulation change.
Sure, and I understand that, but
so there was a public hearing that was held during the course of when the regulations that this is being applied under were presented as proposed to the commission, and then the commission went through a process of interaction and consideration of the regulation. Ultimately, we felt it was appropriate to adopt the regulation, understanding that it would apply to everywhere in town that had an RA zone, which is the residential areas of the town.
But okay, and that I guess is what confuses me, is that if Mr. Gates is going to be living there, but it's also a wedding event space, and so it's commercial, how is this going to be zoned?
This is already zoned RA, residential agricultural, like the vast majority of the land in town. That is our residential zone. So under the special permit process, we enabled a venue like this to be proposed and potentially approved, subject to certain limitations that are in the special permit regulations for an event venue in the RA zone.
But it really is commercial. So does that affect our taxes? How does that affect
well, those are things that are outside the realm of being planning and zoning things. Okay. And if you have questions like that and you want to ask tax questions, you could call the assessor and ask the assessor. But all we can really address in our planning and zoning meetings is what we have authority over and control over.
I understand.
So we had a regulation that was proposed. It was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Understanding that this would be a limited scope use of the property, limited in the number of times per year an event could occur there, and subject to lots of controls. And that this application was made under those regulations. The other thing I'd suggest is maybe you go to the town website and look at the planning and zoning regulations and read the special event section of the regulation so you understand what the limitations and what the process is.
Sure.
And then
I did.
You know, we're going to have a continuation of this public hearing, and so if you've already read them, then you understand that they were adopted and to allow limited scope events like this on a limited basis.
I did, Rick, and honestly, like I said, this is the first planning and zoning meeting I went to, and obviously it's because it's down the street from where we live, and I think that with the increased traffic, it will, like I said, it will affect everybody in this area. But I just wish, because this will directly affect everybody in this area, that maybe the people who this would affect, even though it affects the whole town, maybe it would have been nice to have noticed. That's all. I'm done. Thank you.
Well, there was notice of this application under that special permit process. And that as a result, we have a lot of people that are obviously interested that are attending this meeting. And this is part of the process. We want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
It's important that we hear, it's important that we answer questions. And if you have concerns, we have the ability to interact with the applicant. And if we're inclined to approve the application, to put conditions on the application to help protect members of the public. You know, our primary charge here is to protect members of the public. And
thank you.
We also believe in protecting the rights of property owners, but, you know, and I can't say one is more important than the other, but it's, you know, we're here to serve the public, and we're here to protect the public. So,
and I appreciate you. Thank you so much, Rick.
No, thank you. Thank you for the questions. All the questions are good. We realize that most people are not familiar with the process that we work on every 2 weeks as elected officials. And the worst questions are the ones that you don't ask. So thank you. Other comments or questions from other members of the public?
Rick, it's John Duda again, if no one else.
Yeah, I had Carol raising her hand. I'm going to go to her, Carol Williamson, then John, we can go to you, okay?
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, Rick, what I'm concerned about is that you're allowing a temporary structure, i.e. a tent, which I've never seen a commercial facility with a tent, which means there's minimal tax revenue for the town, yet the town's going to have to maintain the roads for these potentially 3,000 new vehicles a year. How is that happening? I've never seen anything like that before.
Okay, we can address, we'll get to that question. I'm sure Mr. Glaud's made note of that. I would point out that tax revenue impact isn't really part of the planning and zoning realm of consideration typically. It's so when we look at things, we look at use of the land and appropriateness for that area. So, Mr. Duda,
was there going to be a limit for the months
yes, just
of
for the record
year?
So if each time you talk and you take the floor, if you could identify yourself and your address again.
I'm sorry, it's John Duda, 40 Cards Mill Road again.
Okay.
So was this going to be limited certain months of the year, let's say May through October, or were these events going to be allowed 360, obviously 52 weeks a year, any 4 days that add up to that maximum amount, or were there monthly limits?
No, there was no.
Not
no
in February, not in March, or was it any time of the year as long as it doesn't add up to more than they were requiring?
As the application's been made, it's simply limited to 15 events per year with no distribution in specific months.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and if I've misspoken, Mr. Glaud, please interject. I thought I could answer that because after reviewing the application. Other questions from other members of the public? Comments? Mr. Glaud, would you like to address some of the questions that were brought up?
Rick.
Somebody that's got their hand up.
Bethany has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. My name is Bethany Colonna, 93 Johnson Road. Lived here 4 years and newly engaged, excited to start a family, and I'm very concerned about increased traffic, drunk drivers. The roads are very narrow. I'm not able to drive past those power lines when another car is coming in the other direction. We're concerned about noise. I understand events could go on until 11 at night, and there's going to be at least 15 a year. So You know, I like to go to bed around 9 or 10. I don't want to hear the noise. I don't know for certain that this tent is going to be soundproof. We kind of are in a valley, so the noise carries. I heard someone, you know, 2 streets down cutting trees down the other day. So just concerned about starting a family and noise and traffic and drunk driving. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments that members of the public would like to pose? See something from somebody named Mark. Is that? Okay, Mr. Glaude, would you like to address some of the comments and questions?
Yep, I certainly would. Thank you very much to all the public for their input tonight. And I will address, I did take notes as you were going through your comments. I think the first comment was from Ms. Holly Wells about variances. I think the chairman did a very good job of addressing variances. I mean, we're keeping this low key here, so we don't anticipate that we're going to need any variances. Other properties that Mr. Gates may have had, he may have had limitations, and that's why there may have been variances. But we're keeping this low key. That's why we adopted the regulations like we did. So we don't anticipate any variances will be needed. I think the next comment was from Carol Williamson about the best route to the area, in which ways they would be coming in. I have been working with the traffic engineer on how people will be accessing the site, which ways they take you in if you're using Google or some sort of other thing that brings you in from different directions, from Hartford, from Mansfield, and also from the Norwich area. I think we have identified a couple of roads that it mostly takes you through. One of them is Cards Mill Road, which I think is about 1.2 miles worth of traffic. And then the other road, if we were coming in from the other direction down in Colchester Way, is mostly on state roads until we get to, and I apologize, is it Village Mill Road, I think, is the other road that would come in. But I'm going to deter all of the traffic questions for January when my traffic engineer is here with his report, because he will be looking at the safety, he will be looking at the traffic numbers, he will be describing how the level of service of the road, which is how you analyze traffic, will be affected during the events. Keep in mind, we're only looking for 15 events per year. So that is the maximum numbers. They're not all going to be 200. The other thing that you'll hear from the traffic engineer that I will point out at this point is the number of vehicles going to them. Just because there are 200 guests that are at the maximum allowed, you know there's not going to be 200 cars, because
yeah, there could.
If you're part of
no one to interject, please.
If you've gone to weddings, you always know, and there are traffic standards that they use in the manual that looks this up, but it's about 3 people per car that go to a wedding. That's the average number that they use. I believe that's what we used for a parking calculation. And in this case, we're also going to have limousines and things like that that bring people in the wedding party. So it's a lot less than the number of people that attend, the number of vehicles. So I just wanted to point that out. We will be looking at the safe access from the state roads to this wedding facility. Those are some of the things that we will do. I do also want to point out, I was involved 3 years ago with the application in Hampton, Stonehurst. We had more people than we have here tonight with the same questions, the same concerns, talking about drunk drivers, talking about traffic. We understand those concerns, but I did want to point out, after having well over 300 weddings at that facility, there have been no complaints to the town of Hampton. As a matter of fact, I believe one of the letters that are here in support of this, or at least a letter of recognition, is from the first selectman of the town of Hampton as to what he views as something that this has done for their town and how it's been handled. There have been no complaints to the town in what Mr. Gates has done. And we did have a lot of people talking about drunk driving and traffic accidents and such. There have been no incidents in those 3 years either. And I know that's not a guarantee, but I just wanted to point that out for the record. The next comment that I had was Greg Mooney. I believe you were talking about traffic as well. So a lot of what I just said applies, that we are really only doing 15 times per year. And again, I will let the traffic engineer explain some of the things next month. Mr. John Duda, you were also concerned with traffic size, growth, and DWIs and how many months per year. So again, a lot of the traffic stuff is the same thing. The size and growth, this is going to be his home. That is his number one thing here. Yes, he's got a thing about running these things right now. So he visualizes sharing this and but he wants to limit it to 15. I think the commission will remember we were only asking for 15 events per year. They kind of some of them wanted to do more, some of them didn't, but the applicant only wanted to be 15 because he wants to be part of the community. He doesn't want to put too much or to put any, he doesn't want to overwhelm the neighborhood or anything like that. So that's why we're trying to keep it low key. So we don't envision any kind of growth. Doesn't mean there won't be any small growth. I don't know, but I don't see us being over 15 events per year. If we do, we would actually have to change the regulations to do that. So I wanted to point that out. And he was very strict upon that with Mr. Gates was when I did that application for him back in August of this year. Mr. Nelson, I think you were just asking about the meeting date, and you were addressed that would be on January 10th. Nikki, you again were also concerned with roads and traffic. So some of the things I just said should have covered some of those questions, and we'll also have the traffic engineer next month. Again, all the concerns that we have, these are some of the same things that we've had in Hampton. Well, I think one of the only ones I'm missing here is talking about it being a residential zone and why we want to put this in a residential zone. Most wedding venues these days it's a very popular thing right now to have weddings in either barns or very scenic areas. It's kind of the go-to place for weddings. They're hot items. Maybe in 10, 15 years, they won't be, and maybe this place won't be running. We don't know. But I've attended many weddings, as I'm sure have you, but they've been in Maine. They've been in residential areas. They've been in farm areas. They're the bigger areas that can support something like this. Again, we are going to have a tent. It is going to be soundproof. Nobody hears things at Stonehurst. There have been no complaints about noise. He does not allow any kind of fireworks to go off at his events. He just tells people they are not allowed to do that because he is aware of the community. He's not allowed that over in Hampton, even though that's never been talked about, but he does tell people there are no fireworks. People have asked, he said no. So again, these are things that we've tried to take into consideration. He's trying to be a good neighbor. It is a good fit for a residential neighborhood. I mean, the alternative is something like this could be divided up into many residential lots, and then you're going to have more traffic problems than you think that you would have with this, which is very limited and only a few times per year. And I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman, if you guys have any more questions.
Okay, I'm going to go back and ask any members of the public. We really encourage you to bring forth your questions and give us a chance to let the applicant address them. Carol?
Again, why is it
First name, last name?
I'm sorry, Carol Williamson, 12 Garland Road. Why is the applicant being allowed to put up a tent as opposed to a permanent structure? I don't know if that's
we haven't approved the application yet. So that being said, it's for 15 uses per year. Yeah, whoever's got a dog barking in the background, could you mute? Thank you. I'm hoping mine doesn't bark in the background. I'll have to mute. It's a good question. You know, I don't know that's something that we can consider, but I'll throw it out to commission members to address. But probably not this evening. I would encourage you to be at the continuation of this. There's every reasonable chance if we have all of the data that we need at our presented by the end of our next meeting that we might take action at that same meeting. We may defer it to yet another meeting after we close a public hearing. That's assuming we can close a public hearing after our next meeting.
Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
Mr.
Holly
Chairman.
Wells?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, this is actually, I think it's more of a comment. And I think that's a beautiful property. I would like to see it unchanged. I mean, that would be my first, but Mr. Gates is a businessman. He is going to do something to make a profit off that property. And from where I stand right now, it looks like this wedding venue is the least evil option. I would hate to see it subdivided. I would hate to see something else he could come up with to make money on that property. I think the wedding venue might leave it in its best possible condition, as close to what it looks like now. But that's just my thinking. You guys, my neighbors may have completely other thoughts about it. I do not want to see it subdivided. And I don't know what else might happen if this doesn't go through.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Mr. Glaude, did you want to say something?
I did. I was just going to respond to the thoughts on the tent that the public had. I mean, basically, it's not uncommon for weddings to be held in tents, and even professional. I've been to some professional development seminars where they were held in tents at big facilities. The reason for the tent here is to not construct a large structure that may be out of place or out of character in the neighborhood. It's something that's only going to be up 15 times per year, and then it comes down. So that's the biggest reason, so that there's not this, something that everybody would see that doesn't fit in with the rest of the neighborhood. So that was the reason for the tent. It's something temporary. We're trying to do it so that it's quiet. It's not going to be heard. And there are, like I said, there are many, it's not uncommon, but that's the real reason for doing that.
So I have a question. Are there other types of things that could go on there that are envisioned through this application? Could there be corporate retreats? Could other types of gatherings there? We call it a wedding event, but if two people are not getting married, could it be something else going on there? Is one of these 15 events per year?
Yeah, I believe we left it open-ended that it would be a wedding/event facility. It's not uncommon in Hampton. He's actually donated his space to the senior center many times, also to the fire department, has had some functions there, and he's actually donated the space to that. So yes, there could be, but the bulk of it, I would say 98% of his events are weddings, but there have been other things at his other place. Day Kimball Hospital has had some things there. I think also the town community has had a few things there as well.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the public, commission, members of the public? Anything else anybody would like to say this evening?
Yes, Greg Mooney. I have one question for the presenter. The place in Hampton.
Greg, could you just say your address after you say your name?
39 Gollan.
Thank you, Greg.
The place in Hampton you keep referring to, is that the one right off of Route 6?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I believe it used to be a llama farm, correct?
That's correct.
And I think the overall, vibe that you're getting from the residents is that that's a busy road. You're going on and off 6, where on this one, you're kind of weaving in and out of, whatever the traffic study may be. I can't see out of my driveway on the right. So it presents challenges for us.
Even though, and I will respond to that, Mr. Mooney, that even though it is on the main bulk of it is on.
Point of order, what I really don't want to have go on during the course of a meeting like this is a debate between an applicant and the member. I encourage the members of the public to pose a question, but to have a highly interactive back and forth, like a cross-examination, we try, hold on a second, please. We try not to have a public hearing conducted in that way. Any questions you have, please pose them, and we would encourage the applicant to answer them. But if we could get it all out, I would appreciate doing that all at once.
Okay, I posed the question of the Hampton area.
Yes, I understand.
So, and I will respond, Mr. Chairman. Would you like me to respond at this time?
If that would be good. I think
Okay.
that's,
so
I don't see a lot of
we did have challenges at that application too. Even though it's on Route 6, it has a side road which we exit upon, and a lot of the GPS from people coming from the south towns, different south part of the area, would be brought up through that town road. So we did have a lot of room on the town, and we had to go in front of the state for being on a state road. So we did have our different challenges there, or similar challenges as well, regarding the state and town roads.
Yeah, you hit my point. The GPS will send people where they're going to send them.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the public?
I have one being relayed from Richard Terrasquil to Baker Hill. Said he can't.
Yes, I saw some text coming through on the screen.
He said he can't access his speaker, and he would like to say that the property pays the most taxes in town, just under a commercial business. As for traffic, we get a ton from Willimantic and Lebanon cutting through, and these are public roads.
Okay.
Can I say something? This is Nikki Kelty, 5 Baker Hill. Okay, I'm his neighbor. So I can attest to that. Yeah. And this is a very steep hill on Baker Hill. And we get people that cut through to Willimantic from Columbia all the time. So, you know, that then would go through to Franklin. It is a very, very busy street. So I will take, you know, just bounce off or piggyback off of that for him, since he can't access his speaker.
Okay, thank you for the comment. Appreciate it. Anything else from members of the public? So we're getting to the point where we're going to, I would suggest commission members, are you all in agreement that we would continue this to another meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Everyone good with that?
Yes.
So we had a meeting scheduled for December 27th, and then we have another meeting for January 10th, 2022. Mr. Glaude, if we were going to continue the public hearing, and Paula, weigh in if this is, I want to make sure we're legally compliant, what would work better? I would assume December 27th is not a good time for a meeting for anybody between Christmas and New Year's. So, Mr. Glaude,
I'd prefer the 10th.
Commission members, the 10th.
Do you have enough time to advertise if you want to do the 27th?
There's no need for additional advertising.
We don't need to re-advertise. It would be a continuation of this public hearing.
And Mr. Chairman, I think we're going to need the time with the health department to bring this to the January 10th meeting. So we're okay with that. And we do understand that if we need more time after that, that we would have to grant an extension. And we're also okay with that if it goes beyond that January 10th meeting.
So then let's aim for January 10th. So I'll make a motion that we continue the public hearing to January 10th, 2022 at our 7 p.m. Meeting time.
Second.
Motion.
Agreed.
Yeah, who seconded that?
I did.
Okay, Bob Powell.
Yep.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye, or raise your hand.
Aye.
That would be unanimous. Thank you. I appreciate the questions, and I would encourage members of the public who are at this meeting, please be here on the continuation of this public hearing, January 10th. And if for some reason you can't be at that next meeting and you have some thoughts or questions, send an email to our town planner, and we will make sure that we read whatever questions you have into the record at that meeting. Also, at that meeting, we'll review all of the letters that we've received, either at that time, but there's a reasonable chance that we would act on this at that meeting unless we don't feel we have enough information or unless the applicant requests a continuation. But I really appreciate the interest in this, and we take it seriously. One other thing, I just want to say something very general about this. We get that most people who are attending the meeting tonight from the public don't normally interact with us on planning and zoning issues. So I encourage people to ask questions about what our process is and the way we do things. I also encourage you to read the application in depth so that you have a good awareness of it. But it's a well, you know, I want to thank you for your presentation, Mr. Glaude. Paula, any other thing before we move on to the next agenda item?
I just want the public to know that on the Thursday before January 10th, we'll have the agenda up on the website and the link to connect to here. So you can just open up the agenda and click and you will be brought right to the meeting. And any other additional material that we have, if the traffic study is available, for example, we'll have that up on the website.
And I'm assuming copies of the site plan as presented and as modified will be posted on the town website if people want to download them and examine them in more detail.
The submitted plans, including the site plans, are on the website.
So
it's at PDF, so you'd be able to zoom in to see them in detail too.
So Mr. Glaude, as you have updated versions of that, as early as you can reasonably get them to our town planner, we'll post them on the website so that the public has access to them. Yep. So they can ask questions in more detail. But thank you very much, everybody. So we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda.
Rick, could I ask you a question on procedure? Carol Williamson, 12 Gollan Road.
Sure.
If they decide that they need to have more than 15 days of activity there, would they go to P&Z for relief of variance, or do they come and change the actual regulation?
They would need to change the regulation. The regulation currently limits the number of events that it can occur at an event facility like this to 15 per year. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul. That's in the regulation?
That's yes. Correct. That's in the regulation. And
so the regulation would have to be modified in order to do that. And the idea that they would pursue a variance for the number of events, I can't see how that would connect to a hardship on the land. So, but I don't want to that's not within the realm of my purview.
Yeah, so, I was just wondering how it would go. I didn't know myself.
I can't imagine that they would pursue a variance if they wanted to do that. They would have to pursue a regulation change, and we would go through a whole process involved with modifying our regulation, including public hearings on that topic.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
And we encourage any questions you have. And that would be a general question about our process and not necessarily even about this application. Any other questions from the public? So this has been continued to January 10th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Public hearing held during the course of our regular meeting, or we move into a public hearing mode during that meeting. So we're all set on this topic for this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very well done.
Thank you.
Next item up under new business is election of officers. We typically do that at our last meeting of the year for the upcoming year, correct, Paula?
Yes, that's correct.
So anticipating we may not have a December 27th meeting, how would you like to proceed as members of the commission? I pose that question. I would love to continue as chair if you would have me. I would love to have Vera as our vice chair, and I'd love to have Bob as our secretary again. But if anyone else has interest in any of those positions, you know, please weigh in.
I think we should just nominate our existing slate of officers and vote accordingly.
I agree, Rick. This is Justin.
Agreed.
Agreed.
So I'll ask one of you to make that, one of the people that are not officers to make that motion.
Tom Curry, I make a motion that we vote for the existing slate of officers for the next year.
Second
Do I have a
that.
second?
Justin, a second.
Justin seconded. Any discussion on that? No? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that would be unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. Next up are our Paula, the proposed meeting schedule for next year that was put in the packet. Is that something that we would want to have addressed now or later on under?
That's what was approved at the previous meeting.
Okay,
I was giving that out for you. You guys just pin on your wall so you'll know what it is.
I forgot that we approved it. I apologize.
That's all right.
Thank you.
There was a big item on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you. Regulation revisions. We've gotten a bit later than we normally like to meet. How much would you like to get into regulation revisions in this meeting? I'm asking members of the commission. Paula, do you want to speak on a couple of the points and summarize? And then after you summarize, we'll figure whether we're going to get into a lot of detail on this evening or we're going to defer to another meeting.
There isn't a lot of pressure on anything. The multifamily housing is we have drafts in the packet of what the regulations could look like. We've not spent any time on that. I'm not sure 8:30 is the time to start on that. And that once that's worked on, we also need to look at which portions of town that multifamily housing would be permitted. We've been focusing on the Route 6 corridor along in there where there's commercial and some residential existing.
So addressing the multifamily aspect of it and by extension, the affordable housing, Paula prepared a chart of potential available sites that would fall within a potential area that we might want to allow it. All that being said, even if we allow it under our regulations, multifamily housing, the ability to accomplish that is going to be limited by health department considerations.
Yep.
So keeping that in mind so that we're compliant with the state mandate for an unusable regulation potentially, I guess we have to do what we have to do to keep from incurring state wrath. Is that a fair way to express it?
It certainly is, and it's unless there is a designated zone, a firm could propose multifamily housing anywhere in town.
So I'm taking a look at the chart that Paula supplied us as part of the meeting packet. And that is on page, let's see.
21, I think.
Yeah, page 22, actually. So I don't know if you supplied this to us in a map format, Paula. That might be the easiest way to do this.
She did.
It did.
It's not here, but she sent out an email a week or so ago.
That's right. I don't have that readily available.
I don't either.
Why don't we defer this to our next meeting then? And let's make a priority at our next meeting of coming up with a plan if we can sort it out. And I'll interact with you, Paula, offline to address a multifamily housing plan that we put out there, even if that's the only thing that we propose right now. Because we know that we need to change the reference to character under the regulations and the potential to address some aspect of recreational cannabis. But I'll work with you to present something kind of in finished format, Paula.
Okay.
but I appreciate this. I found just looking at a list of available potential sites that would work. A lot of them we discussed from that map from the prior meeting. I'll interact with you. If anyone wants to weigh in on this, I would encourage you to also interact with myself and Paula over the next, well, near month now, because I'm anticipating that we won't hold our December 27th meeting unless there's another application that comes in. Okay.
Okay.
I've not heard of any applications that are anticipated to be submitted.
I'm just going through.
It might be good to one of the meetings when we don't have any business, so that we could just focus on the some of these issues. Maybe instead of canceling the meeting because there isn't an application, maybe we ought to spend some time on these.
Well, let's keep the 27th on the table unless it just doesn't work for whatever reasons. We'll figure that out on the Thursday prior to that meeting, whether we're going to have that meeting. But for right now, the focus would be on keeping that meeting, and maybe we can clean up some of the addressing of the regulations. So nothing under 8.2 or 8.3 tonight, Paula?
No, nothing.
Okay, communication and reports. We did have communications, but it was part of the application, the 14 letters received and the 3 more that came in today. At some point, probably if you could share those by email with everybody so they can see what those were. And I don't want to read each letter into the record as part of the public hearing, unless legally you feel there's a need to. That will get really long-winded.
There is no need to read them into the minutes, but there is a need for the public and the commission members to have access to the letters. So I will. There's 3 of them that are not online, but I will get them all out to the members
okay.
On Thursday. And I'll have Terry's been helping. I'll have Terry get the last 3 up into that packet as well.
So as you're noticing, I'll address, I had a comment I'll address during the open discussion. And there was a comment that came in from Ann. Ann, we'll bring that up during the public comments, okay? Ann Dunick. Under communications and reports. So anything else, Paula?
Nothing for me.
Okay.
Wasn't there supposed to be a report from the CEO?
There was. It was
promised. This meeting. Just as a reminder, I'm looking at the minutes here as a reminder, and it says that that Connie said that she'd have a report completed for the next meeting.
We don't have that apparently, do we?
She would have said it directly to you.
I will reach out to Connie directly myself and do everything possible to get that report in our hands for our next meeting.
We wouldn't have had time to do it this meeting, but if she could have it ready for the next meeting, would be a help.
I will. I'll send her an email tonight, even after we adjourn the meeting. So under audience, under commission open discussion, I don't have anything to bring up. Anything from commission members?
Did you want to talk about what Ann said?
Yeah, well, I was going to have her bring it up under audience of citizens.
Okay. Okay.
Ann, you're on.
She's got to unmute.
You're muted. Still muted, Ann. You got it. There you go.
Okay,
there you go.
I got it.
Hi, Ann. Thank you.
She got it.
Ann Dunick, 103 Lake Road. My comment, which I scribbled, is referring to affordable housing, and perhaps if I was just wondering how cluster housing. For instance, if you had a 10-acre piece, you could potentially put 5 houses on that, correct? 2-acre lots. Is that right?
Yes.
Potentially. Okay. So what if you put, you clustered them close together, had either the same well or the same septic or fewer wells and septic? Would that make it so that you could put more housing? And
I would ask you to bring that up when we're having this active discussion at likely our next meeting, because we've delved into that, and there's real limitations on the ability to share septic systems based on state health regulations. Paula, weigh in on this if you could, because this is something that I'm only slightly familiar with, or any commission members that know a bit more about it. So, and sharing wells to a point works until it becomes a water system. Then it becomes very expensive to implement. And that's after so many users on a well. And I don't know what that number is, Paula, but I would encourage you to.
They've got it on Yeoman's.
There's 3 in town that are considered community wells. I don't know anything about them beyond that. They're inspected, et cetera. The septic issue, there's different levels of approval for septic systems. A single family house or a duplex can be approved by the Eastern Highlands Health District. A little bit, there's more the number of buildings increases, then it's a different level at the state, but it's still a fairly fast approval.
I didn't want to get into that in a lot of detail this evening. I would encourage this conversation to go on the 27th if we have our meeting that evening. But it's something we would love to be able to pursue. But tonight would not be the time for an in-depth discussion about that. Some way to reduce the cost of development. It seems every time we turn around, there's a state regulation that is a barrier to doing that. Right. And it's, we even, with regard to the Ram property, that was the Middleman property prior to the Ram zoning it.
I remember that.
We agreed that we would change our regulations to allow them to break it up into multiple ownership sections to be able to comply with state sanitary regulations. And that seems to be a moving target. So to that extent, Paula, at the next meeting, anything you could bring to bear on this, because we would love to make it more affordable to build housing units in town. Anything you could bring to bear on that would be appreciated.
Right, because I have, I've heard you, Rick, say in a couple of meetings over the long period of time, it's like you throw up your hands and say, we can't do affordable housing because of state regulations.
Yeah, putting multiple septics on one lot seems to be a huge barrier that may have been permitted in the past, but doesn't appear to be realistic at this point. And there's a minimum contiguous area per residence. And we've looked at cluster housing a lot of times over the last 35 to 40 years, and it just doesn't seem to fit the profile in Columbia of the land and the way we're using our land. But this isn't something I want to get into this evening in depth. I'd like to have this conversation as part of considering affordable housing, and we'd be happy to weigh in on it then. But it has to do with limitations on what the state allows for location of septic systems.
And also the length of time for approval on multi-use, which can take years.
And as you could hear during the public hearing tonight, when Mr. Glaude went to the Eastern Highlands Health District and had a solution, and then they ran it by the state of Connecticut, and the state of Connecticut said, oh no. That is so common, and dealing with the state health department is like a whole different entity than dealing with Eastern Highlands Health District. And sometimes one side doesn't know what the other side is doing.
Most times.
Most, yes, Tom.
Agreed.
Sorry.
I'll go on the record and agree with you. Yeah, it's mind-numbing to deal with the bureaucracy of the health department. It's just mind-numbing.
Yes, it is.
So
if we and the state is starting to make noises like we're going to demand that towns have affordable housing. How are we going to deal with this?
Well, let's address this at the meeting where we're going to address it, and I would encourage you to be at that meeting. It's just this is not the night to address it, but it's a really valid question. And when I made the comment earlier, yeah, we could enable 30 housing units per acre. The health department isn't going to support that. No. So it will never happen. I'm not proposing that we do that, but that was an extreme example. What's important is we don't want the state to come in and say, well, you don't have a regulation that conforms with our need for regulation. So now we're going to mandate that you do what you don't want us to allow us to have done in your town. Does that make sense to all of you?
Yep.
Okay. So it's a matter of complying with the state mandate for a regulation that it's debatable whether or not somebody would be able to actually follow through on building something under it.
There we are. Back to square one.
Thanks, Ann.
Okay, thank you very much. Nothing to go into executive session that I'm aware of. Correct. That said, I would make a motion that we adjourn. And before you all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Larry,
that would be unanimous.
I had my hand up before he made the resolution, so
I was busy writing.
We'll give that one to Larry. I would want to thank you all. If for any reason we don't meet on the 20th, well, we're not going to meet before Christmas and the holiday season. Happy holidays to everybody.
You too.
Thank you very much. And and I will get an email out to Connie this evening, asking her to get us an update on enforcement actions.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you so much. Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
Guys.
Oh, and we miss Flo.
We do miss Flo.
We do miss Flo.
Yeah, she's now at the senior center, so I had a chat with her today, in fact.
Okay.
To say tonight, especially, I really miss her because I'm doing double duty. I'm doing double duty here.
Thank you.
She's we interviewed 3 candidates for the position today, and we may be making a decision sometime next week. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks,
good night.
Paul.
Good night, all.
Happy holidays.
Tom, take care of that foot. Oh, he's gone.